Yesterday, just before noon, we had a gentleman was out hiking and with his two dogs was confronted by a bear on the Section 16 trail. The bear basically went after one of his dogs. The man was able to kick the bear in the head to get it away from his dog. Bear came at the dog again. The man was knocked to the ground and kicked the dog a second time, or kicked the bear a second time, and then eventually was able to get the bear to retreat by throwing rocks at it. Called us right away. We responded to the area. We reached out to APHIS, which is a branch of the Department of Agriculture, to have them send some hounds up so we could try and track the animal. So those arrived yesterday evening, and we spent most of the evening out looking for the animal with hounds. We were not able to locate the bear, but we do have a good description of it from the hiker. So today we're setting camera traps and foot snares, and the area is going to remain closed while we attempt to capture the bear.
That side of town, bears are common, and usually it's a nuisance call. Is this different? Is this an aggressive bear versus a nuisance bear?
Yeah, so this behavior is unusual and is more aggressive than what we're used to seeing in black bears. So most folks know black bears are very curious animals. And this time of year especially, they're very active. So they're beginning to go into what we call hyperphagia. They're going to be feeding 20 out of 24 hours a day, trying to pack weight on for hibernation this fall. So having bears in this area is not unusual. Having bears aggressively come after a person and a pet, and a dog in this case, is not normal behavior. Typically, when dogs start barking, bears are going to run away or run up a tree. So if we're having a bear come at the person and the dog is not normal behavior. That is concerning to us, and that's why we're looking to go ahead and remove this bear.
There's also a lot of bears in that area. How do you filter this one out, so to speak?
Right. So again, in a perfect world, the hounds would have been able to find this bear, and then basically they can follow the scent from where this incident happened right to the bear. Because of yesterday's rains, that was not very practical. But we do have a very good physical description of the bear from the hiker, and so if we capture a non-target bear, it's not going to be hard for us to release it and just release it on site.
So once you do capture it, it is going to have to be euthanized, correct?
If we capture the bear that attacked this person, then yeah, it's going to be euthanized.
And that's the difference between nuisance and aggressive. You get multiple strikes when it's a nuisance bear, but aggressive changes the rules.
Yeah, it changes the rules. So, in this case, our primary concern is human health and safety. And, there's lots of good things people can do to be safe when they're hiking in bear country. To carry bear spray, hike with a buddy, make lots of noise, carry a rattle can. Don't hike with earbuds in so you're aware of your surroundings. Make sure pets are kept on a leash. There's lots of things a person can do to keep themselves safe. In this case, this bear exhibited some behavior that is concerning to us, and so if this bear is located, it will be put down because we feel like it could pose an ongoing threat to people.
Is there a double part to that? It didn't run from the bears, from the dogs, but did it also not run from the humans?
Right, yeah. It did not run away when it was kicked repeatedly and then rocks thrown at it. And so, normal bear behavior is that, they do have a healthy fear of people. They do have a healthy fear of dogs. And, we want to encourage people to help bears stay wild. And they can do that by not providing human food for them, by not allowing them to become accustomed to being around people. If you see a bear in your area, leave it alone, keep your distance. But if it's getting too close to your house or it's, too comfortable in your neighborhood, you should do everything you can to make it feel unwelcome there. And that means making loud noises, that means using pepper spray, honking your horn, throwing rattle cans at it. All of those things, it's basically tough love. Bears are governed by their instincts. They're looking for food, and we want to make sure that bears learn the lesson that people don't equal food. When bears start associating people with food, we start seeing progressively more and more aggressive behavior from bears because they're in more contact with people. They don't maintain that fear of people, and unfortunately, this kind of stuff sometimes results then.
So, could this be resolved in a couple hours, and could it also take a couple weeks?
In this area, there's bears in this area. There's no question that there are multiple bears in this area. We wouldn't not expect to see bears in this area. We're not concerned that there are bears in this area. We're concerned about this individual bear and its individual behavior. So if we're not able to capture this bear within a couple of days, we will continue to try to educate the public, leave signs out warning them that bear activities have been in this area, but we don't anticipate a very prolonged trapping or closure effort.
For you guys too, I mean, I can imagine you get into this line of work for a reason. You must love these animals. Is it pretty difficult to have to come to this?
Yeah, absolutely it is, right? I mean, so our officers literally risk their lives every day in Colorado to protect the state's wildlife. And so making the decision to have to put an animal down like this is not one that we take lightly. But we also have an obligation to protect the public, and in this case, this animal's behavior is concerning to us and potentially dangerous to the public.
I'm not sure if you know this offhand at all. Any ideas as to how many bears have had to be euthanized, whether it's this year or last year? Numbers on that?
I don't have exact numbers on that. This year, so typically when we see an increase in human-bear conflicts, it's usually as a result of a natural food failure. So we have a late freeze, or we have a late frost, or a drought that causes there not to be very much natural food available. And so then bears start coming into human areas looking for food because they can't find their natural foods. And when that happens, we see a huge uptick in the number of conflicts. This, by all accounts, has been a very good year for bears and bear food, and so we have a relatively low level of conflicts this year. But we do have bears that, even in good years, spend time in this human-wildland interface, and in this case, this bear has likely had other encounters with people that happened prior to yesterday's events.
Can I ask about the closure? We haven't closed all of Red Rocks. Is it just, I call it the upper because it's up against the mountain, but south side, upper, is that basically what's closed? And then people are going to go, well, why aren't we closing the whole park?
Well, yeah. So, and I'm not as good with all the different names of trails and things like that. So I'll point you to the city or the press release to tell you the exact names of which trails are closed. But essentially, the trails that are closed are the ones in the immediate area where this incident took place. The entire Red Rocks area is not closed. All of the trails are not closed, just those in the immediate vicinity of where this incident took place. But obviously, as I've said earlier in this interview, we know bears are in that area, and so whether you're hiking in Red Rock Canyon Open Space or Ute Valley Park or any of our open areas here in town, it's a good idea for people to be bear aware, hike with a buddy, keep pets on leash, carry bear spray. All of those things are a good idea, irrespective of where they're hiking.
Frank, you want to tell them how rare this is that we're actually tracking a bear to euthanize? I mean, we've had 3,500 calls about bears this summer since April 1, and we've had hundreds right in Colorado Springs alone.
Yeah.
This is the first.
Yeah, I mean, we have received over 300 calls from the public just in El Paso County about bears and bear conflicts, and yeah, this is the first one that we're looking to go and try and find and remove. So again, this is unusual behavior from a black bear. Black bears are normally not very aggressive animals, and so because it's unusual behavior, it is concerning to us.
If there was a bear that was just a nuisance reported to you, would that usually just be a relocation?
Not necessarily, no. So there's a whole kind of gamut of how we respond to human bear incidents and bear conflicts and things like that. And so our first step is always going to be to try to educate people. Particularly if you live in an area or are recreating in an area like this one where bears are likely to be found, our very first intervention that we're ever going to do is try to educate people, right? So we can't, teach bears to kind of ignore or disregard their instincts. And so what we can do is to educate people about how to not teach bears the wrong lessons, how to not invite bears into their space. So we do that by having officers visit homes. We do that by having people talk to us on the phone and give them advice. We have a lot of materials on our website. We actually have a team of volunteers we call our Bear Aware team that will send out into a neighborhood. So if we get a couple of calls in a neighborhood that a bear is tipping over trash cans or something like that, we'll send this team of volunteers into the neighborhood, knock on doors, leave door hangers, try to let everybody know that A, there's a bear that's been seen in their neighborhood, but B, here are the things that they need to do to keep themselves and the bear safe. So that's kind of our very first step. The next thing we might do is we might try some what we call hazing or aversive conditioning. So again, this is where we try to teach that bear that people are not a food source. We want bears to stay in the woods, eat natural bear foods, and not come to be dependent on people and trash and human foods that eventually lead to this kind of aggressive behavior. And so that aversive conditioning can look like a lot of things. Sometimes, like we talk about with the public, they can do it as well, making loud noises, shouting, throwing rattle cans, throwing rocks, just making bears feel unwelcome near people. Our officers also have the ability to use things like rubber bullets, pepper spray, tasers even. We give out things called unwelcome mats, where if we have a bear that is visiting a house and coming to investigate a window or something like that, you can put this unwelcome mat underneath the window, and it's basically got little sharp points sticking out of it, so when the bear steps on it, hurts his paws, doesn't injure him, just hurts, and then again gives him an idea to go ahead and leave. So we would try to haze a bear or condition it to stay away from people. If all of that didn't work, then we would maybe look at trying to move that bear. In Colorado, we do have a policy that's basically a 2-strike rule, which means we can move a bear one time. A lot of people would like for us to take bears and move them to the mountains where there are no people. Well, unfortunately, in Colorado anymore, that doesn't exist. There is no place in Colorado that we can take a bear where it would never again have an interaction with a person. We frequently take these bears hundreds of miles away, and occasionally they return within a week or so. So we have to be careful about moving a bear into an area and having moving a problem from one place to another place. So we will try to relocate a bear. If we have a bear that's hanging out in an area where there are no natural bear foods and all that bear can do is get into trouble, then we'll go ahead and try to move that bear earlier on in the process. So for example, occasionally we have bears that make it out east into places like Rush, or we had a bear out in Carville this year. Those bears can't succeed out there because there are no natural foods. So in those kind of situations, we'll typically go ahead and grab those bears and try to get them back into better bear habitat. But relocation is not our first intervention. Even that one, we try to do other things first, because relocation, again, is not a silver bullet or a magic answer. Frequently, if we take a bear from an urban environment and we put it out into a wild environment, there may be another bear that uses that place as its territory already. And so if we were to take a young male bear and put it into an older male bear's territory, it's very likely that older male bear would prey on and kill the younger male bear. And so there's a lot of things to consider when you go to relocate an animal. But it is a tool that we do have in our toolbox, and we use it when it's appropriate.